Hello, and welcome to the Dungeon. I'm your host, Rob. In today's video, I want to talk a little bit about the D&D Beyond TV channel. Now, I have to be honest, I didn't even know that they had like a free streaming TV channel. It just launched fairly recently. I actually found out about it by watching a video from the channel YouTube Shorts, and he's the one that I heard about it. However, he had a lot of complaints. Not that the shows were bad, that he couldn't actually watch the shows because the links to them on D&D Beyond simply don't work. So I thought, why not give it a shot myself and see if I can find any of these shows and watch them and kind of give my thoughts on them. But I had the same experience as him. The links just basically refreshed the page or just took me back to the exact same page again. I tried for roughly like 30 minutes to try to find a way to watch these shows. Couldn't do it. I could find clips of them here and there on YouTube, but no full episodes. And overall, it just seemed to be like just another example of Hasbro / Wizards of the Coast really just botching things up. I mean, I don't know how much they spent on these shows. They have 3 of them. We'll talk about those more in a minute. But, like these things aren't free, And here you are trying to promote this thing, and your own links don't work. Like, did nobody at Wizards test this stuff? You didn't try clicking on the links to your own shows. It's really unfathomable to me. The 3 shows that they have currently listed, none of which I could watch. Maybe they're not available in Canada. Who knows? But I don't know if D&D Shorts is in Canada, and he couldn't watch them either. So who knows? But anyways, there's Fasher, Purple Worm, Kill Kill. This show is about a bunch of celebrities with first level characters fighting against the game's mightiest monsters, it says. And it says that death and hilarity are guaranteed. The next show, Encounter Party, is just 7 actors who play D&D together in a campaign. And the third one, Heroes Feast, is a cooking show where they go through the D&D cookbook. So, to talk about all these things in order. First, let's start with Faster Purple Worm, right? I think that the idea of a bunch of celebrities playing first level characters and then just dying horribly to a bunch of high level monsters, I think that could be funny in like little clips and bits. But I don't know who, I personally, at least, I shouldn't say I don't know who, but I personally would have no interest in watching this show on like a long-term basis. One of the reasons why campaigns are fun, one of the reasons why shows like Critical Role are a huge success, is because we become invested in the characters that we're playing or the characters that we're watching the Critical Role, actors play, right? And it's just like any TV show or movie, You might really like a character in a movie, but the characters that I personally tend to really fall in love with are the ones in TV shows, because you just have episode after episode, possibly season after season, to really get to know this person and just see them grow and change and develop over the course of time. And you really feel like you've known them as a real person almost. And this is where a lot of the draw comes from. This is part of the fun of playing these types of characters in, Dungeons and Dragons or whatever other game it might happen to be, right? Is you become invested in your character. And if that character is just a level 1 character who's constantly dying, then there's nothing really to like pull me in long term, I guess. Now, I can't say for sure because, of course, I can't watch the show because the links are broken. But just saying that as, conceptually, I think that I would prefer something much more if it was, more of like a regular type of campaign. So, hey, whatever, maybe Faster Purple Worm, Kill Kill just isn't for me, right? Maybe Encounter Party is more for me, because that sounds like what I'm looking for more. The 7 actors playing a D&D campaign. Now, let's ignore the fact that this is clearly just a Critical Role ripoff. Let's be honest, that's clearly what it is. But maybe something like this would be fun, right? I saw clips of like Seth Green and Patton Oswalt and some other people like that. So maybe they're in this one. I don't know if they're in this or if they're in Faster Purple Worm. I wasn't really paying much attention because, like I said, it was just clips on YouTube since I, couldn't watch the episodes. But maybe this would be more my style. That's very possible, right? Maybe it would be for something I'd enjoy. But we already have Critical Role, which has already been around longer and has been established earlier. And I don't know, usually imitations just never quite match up to the original, if you know what I'm saying. That doesn't mean that you couldn't enjoy both, right? Maybe I'm underselling it, and Counterparty could be just absolutely great, and it'll take like all the best stuff of Critical Role, but maybe even better, because one problem with Critical Role that I personally have is that the episodes are really long and there's a lot of them, and it can be really hard to follow the show, like just week after week. You pretty much have to spend all your spare time just watching Critical Role in the background. So maybe these will be like more tightly focused. Maybe they'll be edited, so there'll only be like an hour and a half or 2 hours per episode. I don't know if them being edited or not would be a good thing or a bad thing. I haven't fully decided on that one yet. But either way, it could be a good thing, assuming it works, of course. And then we've got Heroes Feast, which is the cooking show. Now, maybe it's because I'm not much of a cook myself. Maybe it's because you can call something a dragon egg and cook it a dozen different ways, but we all know it's not actually a dragon egg since there are no dragons, unless maybe it's a Komodo dragon, but that doesn't really count. I don't know. I don't know who really loves playing Dungeons and Dragons that wants to tune into a cooking show. Like, they just seem like they're different things. It's not saying that cooking shows shouldn't exist. It doesn't mean that it won't have an audience. Maybe I'm going to be completely wrong on that one too. It's just, I look at all the people that I've played D&D with over the years, all the different groups that I've been with, or like the groups I've played with, like Vampire and Shadowrun, etc., etc. Just one game after another after another. It doesn't matter what game it is. Most of them cared about the games and not so much about like, D&D paraphernalia as much, unless it was like dice and like practical things like book bags and stuff like that, right? I don't know how many people really care that much about cooking a bunch of, purple worm meat when we all know that purple worms aren't real. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that. It could be a fun show. It could be, maybe it's just not made for me. Maybe I'm just not the intended audience. That's completely fair too, right? But I can't help but wonder, like, who is this show made for? Maybe it's made for no one, which is why the link doesn't work. Who knows? But either way, like, I don't know what the appeal of these shows is supposed to be. And I kind of look at companies like Wizards of the Coast. But I mean, honestly, we can even expand that to like Disney lately with just, one flop movie after another. And I just wonder, like, have you guys forgotten who your core audience is, Like, D&D stuff, there's nothing wrong with having a bunch of this, like, auxiliary stuff out there. But you would think that the core focus should be on D&D stuff, And don't get me wrong, like, fun shows of, like, celebrities having their characters die at level 1, that could be all right. Cooking show, again, that could be all right, but neither one of those are really centered on like what the core of Dungeons and Dragons really is, which is, campaign and getting together with your friends and playing and stuff. Only one of the 3 shows is even about that. And that show is basically just a Critical Role knockoff. And it just leaves me scratching my head wondering, like, what were they thinking kind of thing, And like I said, I don't want to get into a big Disney side rant. But I did mention Disney earlier, and I guess to kind of prove my point even more, you look at a lot of the like late Marvel movies and Star Wars movies and stuff like that, right? And a lot of them have been focused on female characters, which I don't have a problem with necessarily. Like I said before, I'm pretty sure I've said this openly several times, but like Buffy the Vampire Slayer is my favorite TV show of all time. I love Buffy. I have no problem with like female-driven heroes and stuff like that. My problem is that Buffy was a show that still appealed to men and to women both, right? It was a show that really could bring in just a huge audience, and it was smart, it was well-written, it had a lot of appeal to it in that way. I'm looking at some of this new stuff, and I don't know what the appeal is. Like, They seem openly antagonistic towards men, and like that's your audience, you would think, or at least a majority of it, especially on stuff like Dungeons and Dragons. I'm not saying that women never play, right? We've got women in my current groups, In fact, we've got like a couple of different groups going. They both have females in them. That's not a problem, right? Ever since I've grown up, I used to play with my sister all the time. I've talked about that before, But the majority of the player base historically has always been male. And maybe they're trying to change that. I don't know. But it seems that if you can like draw in women without alienating the men, then great. I mean, who doesn't want to be able to like play with their, girlfriend or cute girl from your university or whatever else, right? We all want that kind of stuff. Nobody's saying we don't want women in these hobbies. What we're saying is, though, if you turn it into a more female-centric hobby, then a lot of times you still don't draw in the women and you just lose the men. And that's kind of what I've seen happening with a lot of this like Star Wars and Disney stuff as well, right? Where like pretty much all the movies now have female leads. They're all female-driven stories. And they've all kind of started to tank. And like, ironically enough, one of the reasons Disney bought both Star Wars and Marvel, something they expressly said and made very clear at the time, was that they thought that their princess movies did a great job of drawing in girls, and like, you'd see girls like going to elementary school with like Frozen backpacks and princess backpacks and stuff like that, right? And they'd have all this merchandising and everything else, right? And they thought that they did a really good job with girls, but they wanted something like that for boys. So then they bought Marvel and they bought Star Wars. But then they kind of spent the last 5 years for sure, maybe even longer, trying to turn these things into like more female-centric products. And then you kind of start losing the boys, which was the whole reason you bought that stuff to begin with. And I kind of feel the same way with like all this Wizards of the Coast Hasbro stuff. Like, you kind of have to know your core audience. And maybe you don't like your core audience. Maybe that's part of the problem, right? Maybe they think about guys playing D&D in their mom's basement, or a bunch of guys who haven't showered in 3 days at a game store, or whatever the other stereotypes they have of Dungeons and Dragons players. And, they don't want that because we're just not the kind of people that they like, or whatever. I don't know what it is. But we're also the kind of people who hopefully do shower, by the way, the kind of people who've been keeping this hobby alive since it first appeared. The people who buy comic books are majority men. The people who buy Star Wars stuff were majority men. The people who buy D&D are majority men. And like I said, if you can like branch out and bring women in, then that's all for the better, right? Like I said, like my wife used to play D&D with us, right? She doesn't play anymore, unfortunately. But I really liked it when she played. I thought that was fun. And it gave us something we could do together. And it was kind of like this, kind of fun bonding experience. And we could talk about the games and stuff, even between sessions and stuff, right? And it was really neat. But the thing is that if you just make it a game which appeals more to girls and less to boys, then a lot of times you don't bring the girls in and you just lose the boys. And I think that these companies have kind of lost sight of who their audiences are. And I've seen this in a lot of other like kind of like geek type spaces too, right? We see it with Warhammer. We see it with like all these different things where they've kind of decided that their original audience is like embarrassing to them or something, and they want nothing more to do with us. We want a new, better brand of consumers and customers to buy our stuff. And they don't. They don't buy your stuff. We buy your stuff. We make D&D channels where we talk about your stuff and promote it. We're the ones who've been supporting you for decade after decade after decade. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with growing and expanding your base, but I think all too often these companies are alienating their bases. And when I look at stuff like these D&D shows, I think like, who are they made for? Do you think that guys at your local gaming store are really excited about a cooking show for D&D? I don't. They might like Encounter Party, like I said, right? They might like a Critical Role ripoff, right? And by the way, I don't mean to say that to sound too disparaging. Everything's derivative of something else, right? Critical Role is just basically D&D, but played with celebrities on the internet, It's not like it was a completely original idea either. They're just taking the Dungeons and Dragons game and doing what all of us were doing with our friends online. But they have personality, they have fun, and they have a show that's been running for a long time and has been very successful, So good for them. I'm not trying to disparage Critical Role. I like Critical Role. My point is, though, like when you come up with 3 new shows for D&D Beyond and the links to any of them don't work, well, that's not a good sign. It makes it seem like you really haven't put the time and effort in to just test your own website and make sure that these things are available. I've seen no promotion of them. How come I'm finding out about these shows by watching one of my fellow YouTubers who's talking about it, right? I'm not hearing about it from them. Now, maybe they've made announcements. Who knows? I'm not really on Twitter ever anymore. So, that could be part of the problem. But still, like, you'd think that this would be something that would be talked about. Like when in his video, D&D Shorts goes to Reddit, and he found like one person had a post talking about the D&D shows and the links to them not working. And there were 3 replies to that post, and all of them were like, what shows are you even talking about? And I mean, this is a community, the D&D Reddit has like over 3 million people in it, right? Like, that is a huge Dungeons & Dragons community. It might be the biggest D&D community in the world, honestly. 3 million people, over 3 million, And nobody knows about the show. Nobody even knows that they exist. Probably because we, can't watch them and follow the links. So that's number 1. Number 2, like, why wouldn't you put them on YouTube? Even if you put edited clips on YouTube and then you had to go to D&D Beyond to see the full shows or whatever, that's where the majority of the audience is. It's on things like that, So, I mean, the links don't work. That's a problem. No promotion. That's a problem. The fact that only one of the 3 shows is even really like a D&D show, to me, is a huge problem. Like I said, if it was like a typical TV network and you had like 50 different shows and one of them was a D&D cooking show, I wouldn't care. That'd be fine, right? If you had 20 and one of them was a D&D cooking show, that's fine, right? And then you got another one, there's a bunch of celebrities playing first level characters trying to kill like purple worms or Balrogs or whatever. Balors, sorry, Lord of the Rings. Whatever, that'd be okay too. But when like 2 out of your 3 shows are like kind of just not focused on Dungeons and Dragons, like to me that's a bit of an issue, even if we could watch the shows again. So to me, like a lot of this is just going back to this idea that these people don't seem to know who their core audience is. They don't seem to go to conventions. You've got a bunch of like executives brought in from Hasbro and from Microsoft and other things, which led to the whole, licensing fiasco back from, was that the beginning of this year? I think it was this year still, wasn't it? And it's because they don't have gamers at their company anymore. They have celebrities who game on the side. They've got some people who like write stuff, but, haven't really played a lot. They have executives from other companies that have never played and don't understand their audience at all. And they just seem to have completely lost touch with everyone who actually is a part of the game, everyone who likes the game, everyone who wants to follow the game and tries to follow the game. And at the end, I just look at them and think, like, what are you even doing here? Like, why are you even in this market anymore? You don't seem to like your audience. You're making stuff that doesn't work and that no one cares about, even if it did work. And you didn't even promote that stuff. You talk openly about how you need to like do a better job of, merchandising the product and extracting more money from your player base. Let me tell you, consumers love hearing about how much you feel like there's more money that you could have gouged from them, but you didn't try quite hard enough. But don't worry, you're going to do better in the future and steal that money away from those consumers, whether they like it or not. This company is just completely out of touch. And it sucks because I love D&D. I've been playing it ever since I was 13 years old, And I just look at the company now. Granted, it's no longer TSR. Maybe that's part of the problem. but they're just completely out of touch with everything. Do they even go to conventions anymore, really? I mean, who knows? And when they do, it's usually just, some like Q&A type thing, right? So, I don't know. I feel like they've kind of just lost their way. And that doesn't mean that I'm not going to enjoy 5.5 or 6th edition or 1D&D or whatever it's going to be called when it finally comes out, right? Doesn't mean I'm not going to run campaigns for my friends in that system as well. Because I will, right? But it just feels like these guys have completely lost their way. And, my biggest hope, honestly, at this point, is that the share prices tank. They sell the D&D line to somebody who actually cares, and we get somebody who actually has passion for the game, passion for making better products, and actually cares about the gamers again and starts making better stuff. Will it happen? Who knows? But we can always dare to dream. Either way, though, that's basically all my thoughts on this. Feel free to like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and most importantly, leave me your comments in the comment section. I'm curious if anybody has even heard of this show until now, or maybe you heard about it the same way I did, which is hearing a couple other random YouTubers say like, hey, how come these shows don't work? Right? But like, have you heard about it from Wizards of the Coast? I think I might vaguely remember them announcing these shows like a year or a year and a half ago when they were first going to start making them, but then never hearing anything about them again. I definitely didn't hear anything about them being launched, which was supposed to be like 2 weeks ago. Oh, that's another thing too. How come, like, I can understand these links not working like that day or the next day, but 2 weeks later, they're still not working? Like, come on. Like, this is just absolutely unforgivable. And like I said, this stuff isn't free. It's not like Hasbro is a tiny corporation flying by the seat of their pants, working out of somebody's home with like them, their kids, and like their wives doing like all the artwork and packaging everything for them, right? This is a multi-million dollar company that covers the globe. And, this is what we get. Anyways, thanks for everything. Sorry for the rant. I'm also sorry I haven't uploaded any videos in a bit. Part of the problem, though, is that there's just really nothing new to talk about in the D&D scene, really. I'm really just kind of looking forward to us getting our new rule set, which is supposed to be happening early next year, and then we'll have tons to talk about, Otherwise, I'm just left ranting about stuff like this, which is not a fun video to make, but, I think it's something that needs to be said. So anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.